Hello, everyone. So, Self-Worth School is in session. So, today I am welcoming Rebekah Tyler, who is a coach in the cupboard. She's a women's habit change coach. And today's lesson is all about how to become more consistent without burnout or beating ourselves up. Rebekah, you're our guest teacher today. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm really excited for what we're going to be speaking about today. So, could you give us a quick like who you are and how you got here story as to how you've become the coach that you are today.
Sure, yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Rosie. So, I live in Staffordshire with my husband and my two grown up children, and a productivity ninja for Think Productive. And as you say, I'm a coach specializing in habit change. And so I do one to one coaching, group coaching, and I specialize in workshops based on Gretchen Rubin's Four Tendencies framework, which we'll talk about later, my favorite subject. And I do workshops on habit change. But what's interesting for me as a coach is that things like productivity, positivity, personal development, all the P's, they've never come easily to me. But in my, just a trigger warning for some, I'm going to talk about my experience. As a teenager, I developed bulimia, eating disorder. And then when I was 20, I had cognitive behavioral therapy, and it really worked well for me. It was transformational. But the best part of it for me was that it got me onto this path of personal development. It got me fascinated in the subject of personal development. And ever since that moment, really, I have been obsessed about it. It's what I read, I study, I watch, I listen. I learned sign language when I was very young. And so I ended up becoming an interpreter. And in that role, it's taken me into so many different environments that when a few years ago I was given the opportunity to do coaching training, I was able really to combine the two, the experience of being an interpreter with the knowledge and the passion I've got for personal development, combining with the coaching training. So here I am.
Oh, awesome. Thank you for being so open and sharing that with us. I think it's often those huge transitional moments that set us on this path. Because I know for me, it was going through a really difficult fertility journey that made me turn to the world of personal development and mindset. So I totally get that kind of journey and how it sets you on a certain path and opens up things that really help you where perhaps nothing else has tried. So thank you for
Yeah,
sharing that.
thanks.
So, one of the reasons I chose today as a subject and reached out to you was because one of the biggest things that tends to trip up my clients or gets mentioned in my self love Saturday sessions is this struggle with being consistent, whether it's like being consistent with habits, with routines, affirmations, mindset, even
Yeah.
just things to do with confidence or being consistent in setting boundaries and keeping to them. And I want to ask you, based on your experience, why do you think it's such a common struggle, especially for women, it seems?
Yeah, I agree. I see the same. I think a lot of it for women is around the conditioning that we've been exposed to. And we feel that it's selfish. We know that the basics, for example, that the trinity of health, sleep, nutrition, and exercise, really, they're non negotiable, aren't they?
Mm,
But for some reason, as women, like I say, because of the conditioning, we feel that, if we're to do that first and prioritize that, therefore we're being selfish
yeah.
and indulgent and that it's a luxury. Well, those habits around those subjects are not luxuries, they're essential. And so it's a mindset shift of thinking that these habits and routines are actually sharpening the axe. We are better colleagues, better sweethearts, better parents when we're putting that self care in. And, a good reminder if you've got a car or something like that that you constantly look after, you take it to get serviced, you change the tires, you fill it with petrol, you do the oil change. Every time you do something like that for something tangible, just ask yourself, am I giving myself the same level of care, of maintenance? And something else that plays with a lot of people's minds is one of the happiness myths that it's selfish to concentrate on your own happiness. And actually, all the studies show that it's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
It's actually happier people are more likely to help other people.
Hmm.
Happier people are more interested in social problems. They've got the capacity to reach out because they've sorted themselves out first.
Yeah.
And they are shown to do more volunteer work, more charity work. And they're less preoccupied actually with their own personal problems and less likely to be defensive or
Mm.
isolated. And so we can see that actually we need to resist the conditioning, look what the research is saying, and remind ourselves like we look after our vehicles, look after ourselves, and that can, for women, help us to be more consistent with our habits, especially those self care habits.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's that old, you can't pour from an empty cup, and people are like, yeah, 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 I'll do it when I get time. They'll often be like, I'll do it when I'll be happy, when I'll be
Hmm.
more consistent, when I've got more time. Actually, it's the being consistent in terms of making the time. If you say, oh, I don't have enough time to do X, Y, and Z, you don't just magically wake up and more time is created for you. You have to shift into somebody that prioritizes things differently and makes the time. Like nobody's going to make more time for you. That isn't possible. It has to be a shift elsewhere. So I think that's such a key thing about how, yeah, and being more consistent and happy actually makes you, like, say, a better wife, a better partner, a better parent, a better colleague, a better business owner, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
You feel like people get wrong or often get wrong when it comes to consistency and what that means or what might be behind it.
I think one of the things behind lack of consistency is perfectionism. And this was part of my journey, recovering from the eating disorder, this kind of all or nothing thinking and attaching so much moral sort of values and judgment to the things we do or don't do, rather than making a decision, committing to it. When things get in our way and we don't do it, then we criticize ourselves. And then we think, well, there's no point. Then that is completely sabotaging our consistency. And also, really massive topic is self talk, the language we use. Oh, I'm not the sort of person. Oh, I wish I could be
Mm.
like you. And our wonderful brain just makes that language
Yeah.
come true, doesn't it? So
Yeah.
we often as well will set the bar too high.
Hmm.
So we think, right, I'm going to go to the gym every day. Well, that's not realistic. So thinking about, we know the SMART goals about all the what each letter
Yeah.
stands
Yeah.
for. I don't need to repeat that.
Specific, measurable, la, la, la.
I mean, we know it well, but actually it's really good that if we
Mm.
go through each of those when we set our goal, it will help us to set goals that are achievable. And I think the number one thing I see with consistency problems is people wait for motivation.
Yeah.
And we'll go into it when we go into the Four Tendencies framework. But basically, I say, don't think of motivation as even existing. Don't wait for motivation. Instead, change your environment to suit your habits, change your mindset to achieve your habits, but don't wait to want to do it. Because if you wait to want to do something, you'll
You won't
probably
do it.
never do
Yeah,
it.
absolutely agree with you so much here because I often say like the confidence comes from the doing. If you wait and you
Yes.
feel confident or motivated, but it's when you do the thing, when you push through, even if you are scared, even if it's outside of your comfort zone or you're just not feeling into it today. It's like that saying, like, no one ever regrets a workout. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's going for the run. You always feel good afterwards, but you have to make yourself get up and go out there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And something else as well that I often see people get wrong about consistency, it goes along the line with what you were saying about, oh, I'm a so and so person. You're claiming it as part of your identity and assuming that you'll never, I'm just not
Yeah.
that way inclined, or, my mother, sister, auntie is like it as well. But another thing that I often see about consistency, people think that they are lacking in being able to like, oh, I'm just not very good at prioritizing or organizing or seeing things through. Like it's part of their identity. But I think it's hugely down to what you were saying about perfectionism.
Yeah.
Usually where I see like a lack of consistency and procrastination is fear. It's fear
It is.
because
Yeah.
you feel like you're going to do it or you're not going to be as able to be as good at it. So you just think, well, I'm probably not going to reach it anyway. So I may as well give
Hmm.
up, or I'm not going to be able to carry on this habit anyway. So I may as well just give up.
It is fear because it's actually status quo bias, isn't it? It's that we'll keep the status quo, we'll keep things as they are because this is what I know. Even if you don't like what you know, you think, well, if I change, if I
Mm,
start working out and lose weight, well, I don't know what it's like to be a person
yeah.
that's fit and healthy and slim. And therefore, your amygdala's triggered, even though it's
Mm,
something you want and you don't like this situation, but because it's still something new,
This doesn't feel
you
familiar.
say,
This doesn't fit in with the
yeah.
identity that I, even if it's not the one that I particularly want.
So those feelings are normal, but sometimes if we can just be aware of those feelings, we can remind ourselves of what we really want.
I think discipline is reminding yourself of what you really want and actually acting in line with that, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this leads on really nicely, I think, to the main bulk of the lesson today, what we're wanting to teach or teaching the how of this. And you touched on it earlier about the four tendencies. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit more. How do you help people work with their natural tendencies and not against them when it comes to habit building? I know, so you touched a little bit on Gretchen Rubin. So tell us a bit more about how
Yeah.
it works and what you do, how you help people with their habit building and consistency.
Well, a big part of Gretchen Rubin's message is about aligning our life, our choices, and our habits with ourselves. She has this expression, be Gretchen. So be Rosie, be Rebecca, be true to yourself. And part of that is knowing your tendency. And this is a framework that Gretchen Rubin discovered when she was writing one of her books on habit change. And she was just having a casual conversation with a friend over lunch. And a friend said, do you know, when I was at school, I never missed track practice. But now, as an adult, when I want to exercise, I just can't get myself to do it.
Mm.
And this conversation played on Gretchen's mind because she was thinking, well, it's exercise. What's the difference?
Yeah.
And then she realized it's about expectations. And she realized, and she saw this pattern in human nature, that how we respond to expectations puts us into one of four categories. And the four categories are upholder,
Mm.
and upholders are the ones who respond readily to outer and inner expectations. So the outer expectation might be like a work deadline, handing in a project, or an inner expectation would be like a New Year's resolution. So for upholders, their motto is discipline is my freedom. They love framework, structure, routine. They struggle with change, but they will be the ones who can hand in the deadline on time. But if their New Year's resolution is to give up sugar, even if their favorite auntie makes them a cake, especially for them, they won't have a slice. That's your upholders.
Mhm.
The next category is questioners. And as the title suggests, they question everything. So for them, an outer expectation will only happen if they make it an inner expectation. So if someone says to them, you need to hand the report in next week, they will ask, why? They hate anything arbitrary. But if
Right.
you can convince them why, they'll comply. That's their motto. Convince me why, and I'll comply. Interestingly, questioners don't like to be questioned. Normally, because they think, I've done all the research. They love to research. They love data. They love when things are bespoke and tailor made. And questioners as well struggle with analysis paralysis. So they might get so involved
Bogged
with the
down with
analysis. Yeah, exactly. But once they've got the data and they've made the decision, then they're unstoppable. Now, the largest group, most people are obligers, and they respond readily to outer expectations. So they're the ones who will always hand in the report on time. But if they've got a New Year's resolution, then really what we see with obligers is that it goes down the list of priorities.
Mm.
So, if they decide to give up sugar, but auntie makes the cake, they would have the slice because they would think,
You
oh,
don't think.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're the largest group. And the smallest group are rebels, the rebel tendency. And they're the most different to all three. So, for example, an obliger's motto is, I'm counting on you to count on me because
Mhm.
I'm counting on you. Whereas a rebel tendency is, you can't make me, because rebels resist all expectations. They resist the ones put on them externally, but they
Mm.
even resist their own. They're the opposite of upholders. So an upholder decides to give up sugar, fine. A rebel decides to give up sugar, straight away they want to break the rule. They feel resistance to it.
Mm.
So do you mind sharing what you are?
Yeah, you sent me the quiz, didn't you, before our session? I am an upholder. I know you said before our conversation that you weren't surprised based on what you
Yeah.
shared with me. And I wasn't either because I am very disciplined. Dave, I felt resistance to is like, oh, they don't like change. And, that says to me someone who's like very much stuck in their ways, doesn't like change. Whereas I feel like, going out and running my own business, like I feel like, oh no, I don't want to be someone who like seems as like struggles with change. I feel like I'm quite
There's
adaptable. But that's it. We'll always find something that pushes back or something that it points to in terms of our personality that we just
Mm,
resistant to, don't we?
that's really interesting. And Rosie, we could line up 10 upholders and they could have completely different lifestyles, careers,
Mm.
personalities. Because why I like this framework is that it narrows in on a very small part of our personality, which is how we respond to expectations. So it allows for the fact that, yes, you're an upholder, like routine, but you're also very ambitious. So you're prepared to step out of the status quo, push through the status quo resistance and set up your own business. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
there's always nuances, isn't there, to each type and framework that we find.
absolutely. And when we know our tendency, when it comes to expectations, when it comes to habit change, it's a real game changer. So, for example, let's talk about obligers because most people are obligers. Obligers need external accountability. So, if they want to read more, they need to join a book club. They want to lose weight, they need to join a slimming club. They want to exercise more, they need to have a running buddy or they need to book a personal trainer.
If they want to achieve a goal, they need to get a coach.
Exactly. Of course. Yes, I work with a lot of obligers and they do
Mhm,
so
same.
well because they absolutely will, whatever actions you give them, because they know and we're counting on them,
Mm,
then that motivates them. And obligers often resist the idea that they need accountability. They say, well, I should just be able to do
yeah.
that. Shoulds. We need to take should out of our language.
Yeah, accept our personalities as they are, what our
Yeah,
strengths are, what our weaknesses are, and where we need help to
absolutely.
become that best version of us. Sometimes you can't see things when you're in them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you need that external experience, insight, perspective. If you've been struggling to do something and you're not able to do it on your own, then just like if you were an Olympic athlete and you wanted to be the best at whatever, you would
Get a
get someone
coach.
who is a specialist in
Yeah.
telling you how to do that thing
Mhm.
and get that help. And yet when it comes to their happiness or fulfillment or their personal achievement,
Yeah.
they become more resistant.
That is such a good point. Such a good point. And for obligers, really, it's a simple fix. I've had so many struggles over the years to achieve what I want to achieve because of this huge resistance. I wish I could be an obliger and all I had to do was book a PT or set up outer accountability because it works. It really, really works. I can think just off the top of my head, two of my coaching clients who have got in touch with me after our coaching relationships ended and they said, I can't tell you what a difference it's made. Now I've got a personal trainer. I never miss my exercise.
Yeah.
And of course, it's expensive, but what an investment. I mean,
Mm,
exercise is probably the thing. If you're going to put your money anywhere, cancel Netflix, put it into a personal trainer, because that is going to give you quality of life, improve mental health, and all the difference. It's not the activity. The activity is exercise, but it was having the personal trainer, the accountability to the personal trainer that made them do it. And it's literally life changing. And long term, it will be life changing. So for obligers, you need to put in the accountability.
mm.
Now, interesting earlier, Rosie, you were talking about identity. And this is something that I believe for everyone is very important when it comes to making change, is it for it to be identity based. And for rebels, it is key because rebels have a very strong sense of identity.
Mm.
And so for a long time, I used to think, oh, I'm so bothered about what people think of me. But then I realized, no, I'm not actually. I just want to appear a certain way.
Right.
And so, for example, when it comes to exercise, you might think, well, I want to be the sort of person who can keep up with the teenagers when it's family football, or
Mm.
I want to be the sort of person who can not be controlled by mass media. And, I'm not hours scrolling on my phone because that's my identity. And that is something that works really well for rebels when they want to change a habit or a behavior, is to very clearly fix in mind who are they? Who do
Yeah.
they want to be? What's of value to them? And that is one of the biggest pulls for a behavioral change in a rebel.
Okay. Some tips there for anyone that does a quiz because we're going to put the link to the quiz, aren't we? Or direct
Yeah,
people to the quiz so they can
definitely.
find out their own tendency. Sorry. So we'll pop that in the show notes for you. But just building on that, I know you've given some really great advice for people that are rebels, but can you walk us through either a strategy or a tool that you use to help someone stay consistent, especially when motivation runs low? So if any of the
Hmm.
listeners are like struggling with that motivation, they're like, okay, yes, I understand myself, but how can I get myself back on track?
Yeah, yeah. Start with why. As Simon Sinek always says that. Start with
Mm,
why. So if you are very clear and have massive clarity on why you want to make a change, and that's what you remind yourself of every day, then that will mean motivation is out off the table. You don't need it
mm,
because you know your why. And we know when we have the why and the clarity, that will give us momentum just in itself. That's just the way the human brain works. So the key is, well, we said earlier, discipline is remembering what you really want. Well, how do you keep reminding yourself of what you really want? So I recommend people, everyone, no matter your tendency, to spend time having a daily ritual practice of visualization. One of
mm,
Gretchen Rubin's books is called Life in Five Senses, and she talks about the five main senses and how sight is it's a massive part of our daily life and it takes up a lot of bandwidth in our brain.
mm,
We are hugely influenced by what we see. So we can use in two ways. First of all, thinking about setting up our environment. I know for me, if there's something that I want to do, I need to leave a visual clue out to do it. So I like everything very plain and simple. So this irritates me a little bit. But to take my vitamin tablets, I have to leave for the night time. I have to leave them on the banister at the top of the stairs. Otherwise, I just won't see them. I won't take them,
yeah.
even though it's important to me. So it can be as simple as that. Or it can be always having your yoga mat sticking out behind the sofa so you keep seeing it. It reminds you, okay, this is what I want to do. So use sight and also take away things that might get you down the wrong path. So obvious things like if you're changing your nutrition, then don't look at the billboard of that juicy McDonald's burger. Use it to your advantage. Only whatever you focus on grows, isn't it?
Yeah,
So use your
absolutely.
sight to focus on what you want and what you don't want. So that's in your physical sight.
Mm,
But use your imagination. We have such powerful imaginations.
yeah.
Use it to your advantage. And it only takes a few minutes every day just to sit. And I've got an album on my phone with all my goals in it. Pictures, some pictures are real pictures, some are pictures that I've used AI to
Mhm.
create, some are pictures that I've just downloaded from Google. So, like, there's a picture of a woman skiing because I'm trying to improve my skiing. I've got a bit of a block with skiing, so that's in there. And then every day I just flick through it and I play some really motivational music and I flick through it and I remind myself of what I really want. And then that triggers your RAS, your reticular activating
Yeah.
system. So it's not woo woo, oh, imagine it, you'll manifest it. Because you're looking at it, you're telling your
Yeah.
brain it's what's
Yeah,
important.
I want you to look for exactly. So for anybody that
Exactly.
is familiar with the reticular activating system, it's the part of our brain that kind of feel it acts as our world filter basically. So I often liken it when I explain this to clients, I often liken it to when I was looking to buy a new car
Yeah.
and I decided at the time I had a Fiat 500 and I wanted something a bit bigger. So I was considering the Fiat 500X because I love how funky Fiat 500s are.
They're
And I
gorgeous.
decided I saw them everywhere. I was like,
Yes,
"Wow, I didn't realize there were so many Fiat 500Xs." But actually now, if you asked me, like, the last time I saw one, I couldn't tell you because I actually went for a different car anyway. That's our reticular activating system. I want you to, you have this on your mind. This is a filter. I'm looking out for these things, and the universe will show them, or your brain will show them to you.
it will.
So, yeah, I think what you're saying as well, if I like almost put it in a nutshell, is it's become more conscious. As you're paying more attention, being more conscious, making more conscious decisions, but also removing that friction. So
Definitely.
making those changes in your environment that mean you can do that. All
I
yeah,
mean, one of Gretchen Rubin's strategies for habit change is convenience. And the research is hilarious. We are so massively influenced by convenience and inconvenience. You know, even for life changing things like heart medication, the outcomes are different depending on whether it's by your coffee pot or in the cupboard. I mean, you would think that we would see the importance of it and get it anyway, but we don't. And this is
Mhm.
it. We've got to accept we're only human.
Yeah.
You're an obliger, you're a rebel. Work with what you've got. You've got
Yeah.
this amazing imagination, work with it. You've got the RES, use it. And rather than thinking, I should, no, set up your environment. Don't make it hard, make it easy.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And bringing it back to our topic, our kind of key
Mm.
topic around self-worth and confidence, these lessons are all about helping people to become their happiest, most confident self. What impact do you see consistency having on someone's confidence and self-worth over time? Why is consistency so important, or what's the link that you see?
It's really incredible. It's more than the sum of its parts, how it works. If you nail one area of your life with consistency, it's contagious and it spreads to other areas. And then it's this virtuous circle or
Yeah.
cycle. You then develop this relationship of trust with yourself because you realize that you're not letting yourself down. Of course, the opposite is true, which is another reason why we don't want to set the bar too high.
Mm.
If you say, I'm going to go to the gym every day, but there's no physical chance you can
Yeah.
do that, then you said to your brain one thing, it sees another thing. It's like, well, we can't trust ourselves, can
Yeah.
we? But if you say to yourself, this week I'm going to get to one gym class, that's achievable, and you do it, then you get all this rush of all those amazing neurotransmitters of,
Mm.
serotonin and dopamine. And then that will reinforce the behavior. So, what we want to do is start to create these little virtuous circles of self trust, doing what we
Yeah.
say, saying what, and then really having a to-do list, all the things that you've achieved.
Mhm.
We're so focused on what I should do or what I need to do, but then we forget what we've achieved. And another ritual I like to encourage as well as visualization is people call it different things. I call it priming, but it might not be others' versions of priming. Mine is I literally have pictures or just sentences of things that I've achieved, things that I'm proud of. I can't argue myself out of it. I can't talk myself out of that
Yeah.
because that's
Yeah.
true.
The
It's factual.
evidence.
And looking back on what I achieved in the past and thinking, well, how did I do that? And then taking some of those strategies to the present and then creating in one area this success virtuous cycle then spreads to others. And it takes time. So we need to be patient with ourselves. We need to be really kind and patient and think about every day just achieving something in the areas that we want to achieve.
Mm.
For example, if you wake up and you've got terrible period cramps, you might not be able to do a full 20-minute hit, but can you just do 1 minute of jumping jacks?
Yeah.
I've got little egg timers everywhere that I think, right, okay, I can't do a full workout, but I'm just going to do my egg timer for 1 minute and do jumping jacks.
Mhm.
Then what you're doing is you're casting a vote for that identity, for that
Yeah.
that lifestyle. And again, it's reinforcing it with your
Yeah.
your brain, building that confidence. And you're then what's happening is your comfort zone is stretching. You're able to do more. And you're also you think, well, if I can get through this workout, I can get through anything. You might
Yeah.
be nervous of a presentation on work, but you think, wow, if I can get through this workout or this two mile
And if
swim.
I've done this even when I feel,
Yeah,
rubbish. Like I said, I think the self-trust thing is huge.
it
And
is.
that's definitely something I see a lot with my clients is they lack self-trust, whether they believe they can do something or follow through on something, like I say, will be consistent. And I think when you are showing yourself that consistency, even when you tweak it, when you change it, but you're still meeting yourself in
Yeah,
some aspect or another, you're saying to yourself, "Oh, I can do this, but also I'm worthy of showing up for myself."
yeah,
And look, if I see myself and my goals and my habits and my health and my happiness and my fulfillment or whatever is important enough to actually show up, the more, like say, we mentioned this earlier, but if you start, you need to start there rather than start, oh, when I have the time or when I've done this or when I've done that and I can prove that I can do it. No, you have to
yeah,
start with the action and then the self-trust and the confidence and the consistency grows from there. It's not, oh, I know I'm 100% going to do this and be 100% consistent and perfect all the time. And that's the
yeah.
only way that I'm going to pick up this habit or move towards this goal. It's, no, I'm going to find a way to make this work for me. I'm going to be disciplined for myself in a way that works for me and build that over time.
Yeah,
Love that.
systems based, definitely, without a
Okay.
doubt.
So just want your quick thoughts on habit building in terms of like you often hear, oh, you have to do a habit for 31 days or 62 days or 21 days. And then it becomes like, then what's your thoughts or take on that? And the fact
Yeah.
that there seems to be so many different numbers, and whether that is different again for different people.
Well, it is true that if you were to put that in ChatGPT, they would say something like between 27 and 61 days is meant to be
Right.
the sweet spot. Um, Personally, I think it's all about up here and what's going on up here about whether a
Your
habit sticks
mind.
or not.
Yeah.
And I think because at the end of the day, life happens, you could be in a car accident, your child gets sick and you can't meet your goal, whatever it
Yeah.
is that day. But it's really what's more important with habit development is when you miss what you do next.
Yeah.
Because James Clear says in Atomic Habits that missing once is it happens, missing twice is the start of a new habit. So really, and also what the research shows that, which is weird, is that if you're really good at keeping a habit and then you stop, it's harder to start again than when you first started.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, really. The key is accepting that things are going to get in the way
Mhm.
and that you're not going to be perfectly consistent, but it's that old adage of getting back on the horse,
So
back
if you
to it
yeah.
as soon as possible. And the only reason you'll do that is if you are completely committed to the reason. So that's why I say it's up here.
Yeah.
If you've got that clarity of why you're doing it, this is where we learn from questioners. So in Gretchen Rubin's Four Tendencies framework, questioners, whatever they want to achieve, they first of all will get the data and the reason and the clarity and the why for it. And that's a very powerful motivating force. So if we can start with the why, if
Mhm.
we have the clarity of why, then even when things happen and get in the way, we'll get back to that routine. And in the end, it will become more consistent.
Yeah.
And the thing is, really, what we would like is for everything to be on autopilot. But actually, the things that are uncomfortable, like working out, refusing sugar, moderating your drink, resisting the pull of the mobile when you're talking to someone, all those things that we would love to be default will never be because they're uncomfortable. They need our conscious, intentional process behind it. So sometimes it's just about accepting that if we want the benefits, focusing on the benefits, if we want the bigger life, then we're going to have to be always in this kind of alertness and intentionality about what we do each day.
Okay, so let's wrap up, give some wisdom and action for them as well. If there was one key lesson or like takeaway that you wanted our listeners or our students that are listening today to come away with, that big takeaway that you want them to take from today, what would it be?
Mm. I think I love this quote because it was one of the hardest lessons I had to learn in life. And it comes from privilege, really. I had a really privileged upbringing. So my mum is very academic. I've got three sisters, so us four girls, we all could read before we went to school. My dad, he was a salesman and he was all about confidence and charm. Growing up, life came easy to me. Work at school was easy,
Mhm.
social life was easy. I had three big sisters who took care of me and doted on me. So I never really had to work very hard.
Mm.
But of course, that's not sustainable, is it? You get to the real world when I
Yeah.
was 15, 16, 17, I would give up very easily because it would get so hard. I would just think, oh, what's the point? Clearly, this isn't for me because this is so hard. I never realized, and it's almost embarrassing to say it, that anything that's worth achieving in life is hard work and involves discomfort and pain. So the quote is from Jim Rohn, and he says, there are two types of pain you'll go through in life, the pain of discipline and the pain of regret.
Mhm.
Discipline weighs ounces while regret weighs tons. And I've had to learn that the hard way in life. But once I kind of got it, okay, if something hurts, if something's painful, if something's hard work, it's because it's of value that now I'm almost looking
Mhm.
for it. Tony Robbins talks about turning pain into pleasure. It's like,
Pain into purpose and what.
yeah,
That's a really interesting insight, actually, because although I'm almost resistant to the message that anything you want must cause pain, I do get what you're saying in terms of
yes,
it matters to you. So
yeah,
either it's causing you to grow as a person and do difficult things and come out of your comfort zone, so you're growing
hmm
in that sense of pain, or you're finding it difficult because actually it's something that you really want, like you
yeah,
said, something that you value.
yeah,
And how the difficulty is to make something a habit or follow through is nothing compared to the pain of regrets of not doing something, not saying something, not being something to someone, or being something
Yeah,
to yourself, or starting the business, or going for the role, or whatever it is.
true. And it's a lesson, like for me, that I'm still learning now. I'm trying to set up my business. To me, the world of social media, I'm completely ignorant, and it is so uncomfortable. But then because it's so uncomfortable, I think, I must be onto something here. I'm
Mhm.
doing something right. Even if this doesn't grow my business, it's teaching me how to be you get used to being uncomfortable.
Yes.
And I think I wish I'd learned that much sooner in life. But I got
Always
there
the
in the
way,
end.
isn't it?
Still learning.
Okay, Rebecca. And finally, what's one simple like action step or takeaway that our listeners, our students can try this week to start applying some of what we've spoken about today? What's something that you would want them to do?
Take Gretchen Rubin's Four Tendencies quiz. Find out your tendency. Get to know yourself a little bit better. Love yourself more because of it. Be
Mm,
grateful for what you are. Work with your tendency. And just remember, be kind to yourself. And in the places when you mess up or when life gets in the way, that's normal. And just be tough with yourself when you need to be. When for me, it's like, I don't want to take my makeup off at night, or I don't want to go and do that walk because it's raining. That's when you need to be tough with yourself. But be kind to yourself, get to know yourself better, take the quiz.
awesome. Thank you. Oh, Rebecca, I've so enjoyed this conversation, and I hope everyone finds it as useful and as interesting as I have. Can you just tell our listeners quickly where they can find you, where they can follow you? We'll put some links in the show notes as well.
Sure. Well, going from nothing to everything with social media. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. My website is therebekahtyler.com. I'll send you the link so that
Yeah,
people can
great. We'll
get
pop
the
that in.
freebie
Yeah, and
on
we'll
my
put some of
website.
the. Oh, lovely.
Yeah, I've got a course on my website. If you want to look at that, reach out to me. I'm often known as the coach in the cupboard on social media.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Rebecca. It's been awesome
Thank
having you
you.
on. Thank you, everyone.